All right. I know it's going to be a good audience when you get a round of applause before you even say a single word. Thank you for coming to the very last session. We're going to talk about deepfakes, which is probably a bit of a giveaway here, but
what's up, TikTok? You guys cool if I play some sports? I love it. More for the audio experience as much as the momentum. Hey, listen up, sports and TikTok fans. If you like what you're seeing, just wait till what's coming next.
how many of you know who this is? Raise your hand. Oh, come on. Some of you already know that this is not actually Tom Cruise. This is Deep Tom Cruise. Okay, so these viral videos that came out a couple years ago, and they're really well done as deepfakes go. And of course, the technology is just getting better and better. Now, you do see it's not perfect. In this GIF, you've got this moment where the sunglasses disappear from the face. Okay, so there are these imperfections in deepfake videos. By the way, this is the Tom Cruise impersonator who was hired to play Tom Cruise for the purposes of making the video. So you start with a good base, and that's really helpful for making a good deepfake. So if you are in the business of needing to make a deepfake, there you go. So there's a couple different types of deepfakes we could talk about. One of them is the face swap. So as you can see, here's a man swapped with a Barbie. And of course, these appear in all sorts of apps on your phone, as well as on websites. And there's lots of technologies for this kind of thing. And then there's Puppet Master. So we've kind of reversed roles here. Instead of making President Obama say things he never said, we've got actually 4 of us from RIT saying things we never said. And now the quality is not awesome on these, but you'll note that they came from a single still photo of each of us. So this is, you can animate people just like a single still photo, just like you can also animate the Mona Lisa to make the Mona Lisa say whatever you want her to say. It's all sorts of fun. And of course, there are some positive uses of this technology. So many of you have probably seen the Luke Skywalker deepfakes on the Disney Plus platform. This is DALL-E. Can anyone tell me what DALL-E's holding here? Does anybody think that DALL-E was alive at the time that this device was created? But you can go to the DALL-E Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida, and you can have DALL-E take a selfie with you, which is pretty cool. Absolutely. I think they actually have some video of DALL-E to work with, whereas, of course, you would need an actor to do something to build on if you were doing somebody who didn't have video of, such as Abe Lincoln. But certainly, there are some things that you can do with that in the education space. There's therapy. Right? If you have a lost loved one, you can literally talk to them on Zoom now. Right? This is a thing that people have been exploring. So you could bring Abraham Lincoln back to life. You could bring JFK back to life. Here's an example where people brought him back to life in order to have him deliver a speech that he had written and prepared, but of course wasn't able to give, which is really interesting. And it can be used in translation. So here's a bit of a bit more questionable case, but I think that the broader idea has some value. this Indian politician decided, well, you know, it's India. There are many different languages among the billion-plus people who live here. So instead of me trying to learn all these different languages, let's just take my video, deepfake it into these other languages, and we'll be good to go. And of course, he didn't actually tell anybody that that this was not him actually speaking. They just released the video in the different languages wherever they thought it would be useful. But nevertheless, you could imagine where that kind of thing could be a lot better than just having subtitles, especially in places where literacy rates aren't 100%. And of course, there are lots of negative uses, and you've probably heard of some of them. So there's all sorts of ways that you can, either through face swaps or other technologies, make deepfake porn. And of course, there's some really terrible uses of that. With deepfake audio, you can drive all sorts of scams. And this is becoming a popular way for people to steal money. They're coming for your bank balance. They're coming for your companies. And the tools are readily available for this type of thing too. The potential to do misinformation and disinformation is pretty obvious in this scenario. You can make anybody say anything you want, so there you go, as long as you have a picture or ideally some video of them. And this was used for purposes of war in 2022 at the start of the Ukraine invasion by Russia. You've got videos that come out of both President Zelensky and President Putin, and they both said the same thing, which is rare for these two to be saying the same thing, but they're both saying, we are not going to be fighting in this war. Comrades, lay down your arms. Now, we know that's not what actually happened, and of course, these were deepfake videos and put out at that time. Since then, there have been more videos, in particular of Putin, that were actually part of a larger campaign of misinformation that was spread through parts of Russia. This year, we're starting to see a lot of deepfakes getting used in politics. Some of it some of it that is clearly meant to be confusing for people. So there was a picture of, it slipped behind the other videos. Such as there was a picture of Donald Trump hugging Fauci, which was a hug that never happened, but there you go. Here is a video of Biden talking about a nuclear war that has been launched by Russia or something along those lines. And it's like, some pretty scary stuff. And the technology for this is pretty accessible. You can go online, and this is, on YouTube, and you can search how to make a deepfake, right? And you can find lots of tools that make this easy to do. On top of all this, we have something called the liar's dividend. And an example of this happened recently when Elon Musk's lawyers said that in court that, well, Elon didn't actually say those things. Those were deepfakes. And that argument got thrown out of court this time, but at some point between the technology getting better and people being able to find ways to kind of cover up their story, this is going to get more serious. So I thought about, well, what specifically are the risks for companies? And rather than just thinking about it, I asked ChatGPT, hey, what do you think are the risks for companies? And it gave me, so one answer that I didn't display is that it could make biometrics hard. Yeah, sort of. I mean, most like facial recognition has liveness detection, so it's unclear whether liveness detection can get fooled readily with this type of thing. So you can have, if you've got deepfake video of your CEO proverbially getting their hand caught in the cookie jar, or in this case, literally there's a hand in the cookie jar, that can certainly be a potential issue for a company or organization. And of course, there's the tried and true impersonating the boss to steal money from the company. So there's many different ways that you can do that. And if you can do that with a deepfake video, more commonly with a deepfake audio these days, then you're seeing that get to use to great effect. Okay, so in our project, we have worked a lot with journalists primarily, as well as more recently with intelligence analysts who have access to a variety of tools. These are some of the tools that are currently in use for verification of information by journalists. Now, of those, most of them are for like textual information and facts. Very few of them, or for other aspects of information, such as whether somebody is potentially a bot or not online. But there are relatively few tools for image and video verification. So InVid is a well-known and popular one. TinEye is another one. And the focus is on things like doing reverse image search through Google image search and so on. With InVid, it is more fine-grained on the video itself, pausing it, zooming in, looking for unusual elements, but it's not the same as deepfake detection. So more recently, companies have started to come out with deepfake detection solutions, and they have some pretty strong promises. 99% accurate, right? This one, Reality Defender, which they have I will say, they have a nice newsletter I subscribe to that just comes out with all of the relevant news in this area, which is really nice for me. 99.82%. Right? Some really, really big promises. Now, this is about their text, but they also make big promises about their video detection. And this is something that we can both sort of, on the one hand, sort of back up, and on the other hand, have a lot of concerns when we see these kinds of claims. So we've been building our own deepfake detection system, which is called DeFake. And this shows you a snapshot of what one of the user interface screens kind of looks like. You see the video here. You see some bars that show you in different parts of the video that some of it looks more fake and some of it looks less fake, depending on what things it's looking at. There's kind of an overall fakeness score, and there's a few features that don't actually exist. They're just here for as part of the demo user interface, but such as showing, well, what are the actual manipulated faces? So I'm going to do a little demo. So first we have this video.
I want you to remember that a graduation ceremony doesn't celebrate
That's my provost.
just a moment
He's new
in time.
to RIT.
It's the culmination of
He's
all
already
your
giving a
years of learning
graduation speech.
about the world and about yourself. The friends and family who supported you every step of the way, they aren't celebrating a piece of paper. They're celebrating you, how you've grown, the challenges you've overcome, and the experiences you've shared.
Not bad. Again, that's animating a single still photo. And it took my PhD student longer to find the photo of Prabhu David, our provost, than it did to generate the video that came out. This is what it looks like when we run our tool on it. So it's usually we take things off of YouTube as our source. And there's a skipped part where it has to download that video in order to be able to process it. Speeding up through the processing itself. And so there's a couple of different types of detection algorithms that are employed. and they happen to both detect it as fake. Now you can see if we stop, let's see, let me stop there.
I want you to remember that a graduation ceremony doesn't celebrate just a moment in time.
Ooh,
It's
now
the
that's what I get for having two videos on the same screen. Okay, so you can see that there are some areas that are marked as green, which means not fake. You just saw the video, you know it's fake. Right? Well, one of the things that my student mentioned is, well, at some points in the video, it can be confused because there's one real face, which is Obama's face, and then there's the fake manipulated face, which is the provost. So there are, challenges in developing this type of technology, needless to say. And that is also to say that these technologies can make mistakes. I gave you one example here of how the technology can make a mistake. There's also just the fact that these are AI-based tools right now. And that means they are trained on some data. And I can tell you that within a data set, so if I've trained something on a data set, it is usually going to be very accurate on that data set. But what happens if you take something out of the data set? What happens if the person making the deepfake, oh, let me go full screen again. I'm not sure how we got out of full screen, but there we go. What if the person making the deepfake develops the video, takes the video and goes, well, first of all, oh, this one didn't turn out so well. I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to try again until I get one that does turn out well. I actually did that with one of these videos. What about I can take the video and, oh, there's something weird here. Let me clean it up using some post-processing, and then before I put it out. Whereas in a lot of the data sets, they're just automatically generated. And they contain all of those errors, all the flaws, all the good ones and all the bad ones. Sure enough, right, we're able to detect those pretty readily. But when someone puts something out in the wild, it can be more of a crapshoot. So those 99%, take those with lots and lots of salt. So considering this, we have worked with journalists in what we call Dungeons and Deepfakes, which is a scenario-based role-play exercise where we take the journalist and we say, okay, you've been given a video from a sort of unknown source. You're not sure where it exactly comes from, but it's starting to go viral online, and it's really newsworthy. One of the examples, we have a prominent politician who's admitting to bribery on video. Okay, really newsworthy if it's true and if the video is real. You are tasked with trying to figure out what's the news here. What do you do? And then we watch we put them through step by step. What would they do? What would they do next? If maybe they're working in a team and they start discussing, well, what should our options be here? And in particular, what we want to understand is, are they going to use the deepfake detection tool? If they use it, how seriously do they take the results? And that's for us a very mixed bag, because on the one hand, we're developing a deepfake detection tool. We want them to take the results seriously. On the other hand, if they take them too seriously, they could make a mistake. And we see overall journalists are pretty good. First of all, they focus on the things that really matter, like, can I talk to the person? One of the things that we found out while trying to do this as a user study with journalists is that if you get journalists from a large national news organization, then and we give them a scenario that involves a video of a famous person, let's say Elon Musk, then their first response is, oh, well, I'll call Elon. What? You'll call Elon? Yeah, I'll call Elon, and I expect him to pick up. Oh, okay. We don't use that scenario anymore. We actually now put them in international scenarios where, maybe they're in more sort of deep water. But, most of them are diligent, most of them do a good job, which is really good to hear. On the other hand, we did catch a few of them. And in particular, if anybody had sort of a bias going into the scenario based on the way we set it up, that, I think that is more likely that, that person, based on what I know of them, they are kind of likely to be bribing that developer. And so I'm going to sort of assume that it's true and work from there. And maybe they'll get some contrary evidence, but then if the video detector says, yes, it's real, that's enough, they go to publish. So sometimes it can be a real problem to have a tool like this. And when we look at the detection results, ours is, so I'll start with ours. It's not really different. We have this percentage of fakeness. I'll just ask you, do you know what fakeness means? I don't think I can truly explain. I can tell you what's actually going on in the background and like what that number represents, but I also, because that's a machine learning algorithm that's spitting out an answer. So that number is on it. There's a number on a scale from 0 to 100. It's actually, it's on 0 to 1, and it is the confidence of the model. But the confidence of the model doesn't necessarily tell you very much. In fact, one of the things that we know from machine learning is if you get out a little bit outside of the model's comfort zone, so the model's been trained on this data set, you get a little outside of that. What happens? It might make the right choice, it might make the wrong choice, but it is often going to be very confident. Like that confidence starts to go way up. And that's just because you sort of, within the little box of your data set, you draw like this squiggly line between the real stuff and the fake stuff. And at some point, you get to the end of the box. And then at that point, the lines just go whoop, and they keep going. And now you've got something outside the box, and now it's very far away from that decision boundary. And now it goes, it is fake. I am 100% sure. It should not be 100% sure about anything. Here's one called the Deepfake-o-meter. I kid you not. It comes just from down the road at the University of Buffalo. And they have something called the frame integrity score. Same kind of thing, but on a just single frame-by-frame basis. Reality Defender, and it has possible manipulation percentage. This one has a red box around it, and you see that 0.98. Now, I think this is a spoiler, I think, for a later slide, that 0.98. This is a real video, not a fake video. Right? You would have looked at that 0.98 and gone, oh, that's got to be fake. Turns out that's actually a real video. Duck, Duck, Goose. One of the things that's interesting about this one is it tries to use a heat map to isolate, well, what parts of the video does this algorithm think are fake? And that's pretty compelling, but it turns out that if you were to flip the decision and say, I'm going to tell you in advance that this is a real video, or take a real video and say, I'm going to say in advance that this is a fake video, it will give you almost exactly the same type of heat map as when you see actual fake videos. So what has it really learned? It's really unclear. And just, another one from We Verify EU. So we don't have really good ways of conveying. We can tell you something about what the model says, but we don't have it down yet. Can we provide real evidence to you? Something that goes beyond what's in this model. And that's something we're working on. And so there is this over-reliance that I've mentioned. The models have high accuracies on curated data sets, but the deployed apps, if they are saying they're 99%, that's on those curated data sets. Here's the example from the previous slide, that 98% fake. So this is an interesting case because the video is real. The person is giving a coerced confession So it's a real video of something fake. But it's a real video, right? So it's not a deepfake. And that probably actually goes to a little bit about why is this being detected as fake? It might be because he's not showing a lot of expression. He's not moving his mouth very much, which is actually something we actually see in some of the deepfake videos as well. So the metrics are questionable, and it turns out that most journalists have little experience with AI tools. And this is something that when they're trying to figure out, well, should I believe this thing or not, it's got a red box. It says 98%. Shouldn't I believe it? That's the default. So it's something that we are trying to work to correct and work against. Develop interfaces in our system that would do a better job with this. So indeed, tools that are meant to help could actually harm. So the other thing about this, you can see that this 98% meant that actual journalists put this onto their news site. Hey, look at this fake video that came out. All right, so then I was thinking, okay, so what about defenses for organizations? And again, I don't know, so I asked ChatGPT, and this is what it said. Number one, you should educate and train your employees and customers. It makes some sense, but it's certainly going to be difficult. I mean, what are you really going to be able to tell them other than deepfakes exist, and if you see a video of our CEO with a hand that's stuck in a cookie jar, maybe don't believe it.
Especially if it's the fifth hand among two people.
Yes. In order to prevent, fraud and impersonation type fraud, we have strong security protocols, but you guys know all that. Employed deepfake detection, AI-based, it said, in fact, AI-based deepfake detection tools. But again, you have to be careful when you use the tools that are built on AI. And collaborating with other stakeholders. And this is the one that I thought actually made the most sense and is really where we're at today, is that we need to be in this conversation and continually be talking about what are we seeing getting used. Right now we're seeing a lot of voice deepfakes, right? So what are those, and how can we start to develop training for our employees so that they can understand that, oh, okay, I'm 4 levels down from the CEO. He's probably not giving me a call because he wants gift cards, okay? But that's something that we're going to have to really work with folks on.
So I have a question. When do you think it'll happen that we won't be able to distinguish it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we're actually, so things are moving faster than I thought. And so here's one of the things that I'll tell you. The basis for a lot of what we do in terms of detection, we think relies heavily on the fact that you have 2 different videos. So whether it's the face swap, you obviously have. You have one face, you've literally like copy paste like onto the other one. In the Puppet Master, you have the original, what we call the driver video. And so in the example I showed, that's Barack Obama, he's the driver. That's a real video of him actually talking. Then we have, in our case, the still photos, but you have a video of the target, right? And so you have this second video, and you're actually manipulating the second video according to things you see in the first video. In either case, you've got the 2 videos, and you've got the manipulation of this second one. And the manipulation, if you did it in a dumb way, it would be really obvious to see like the Barbie face cut out, right, into the guy's face and vice versa. But so there's this technique called blending that smooths all that out. Works really well for our eyes, but it doesn't but it does make things possible to detect in some cases, many cases. However, what we're starting to see now is video created fully from generative AI. So what we see right now, of course, in practice is we see the photos. We see the photo of Trump hugging Fauci. We see the photo of the Pope in the puffer jacket. That's where the technology is now. The videos if you've seen some of the videos, so far, they can do some animated things and they can do some not very good things with people. But that technology is going to get better. So things are moving faster on that front. And of course, if you just have it purely generated, you don't need blending anymore. So I'm a little concerned that actually things are going to move towards that direction faster than we might hope. And that's where, in any of these cases, like what's actually required is you need multiple points of view to say, and from multiple sources that validate each other, that no, this is something that was actually said by this person on this date. That sort of external context is going to really be all that's available to validate. Now, we're not there yet. I am still hopeful that at least in the near future, even the fully generated videos are still going to be detectable as fake for various artifacts that are generated, and potentially just other elements that might be possible. So one of the detection techniques that's really interesting that comes out of University of California, Berkeley, is they first learn a set of patterns about, let's say it's President Biden. They learn his patterns and behaviors and mannerisms and say, okay, this is what it's like whenever actual President Biden is speaking. If somebody else is trying to make it look like President Biden is doing something, is saying something he didn't say, then it is likely going to violate some of those patterns. And maybe you can still fool that if you have a good enough actor, right? Or if you have a good enough generation technology that really learns everything about President Biden, how he, maybe you can, that continues to be a cat and mouse game. But that's another alternative that might not be as easy to fool if that gets working. Okay, well, so this is the team. This is our sponsors. And let's see. Oh, so some of this stuff was created by Saniat Sohrawardy, and he also goes by John. And I asked him to make one more video for me. So I did it last night, so I didn't have time to check it. Let's see what
Hi,
he
I
said.
am Matt Wright, and I'm here to tell you that your reading group is going great. Also, I strongly believe that John deserves to be given a full doctorate degree right now because he is so productive.
Oh. Okay, well, I'll have to talk with him. And let's see. So with that...
Hi, I am Matt Wright,
No,
and I'm here...
stop it. Stop it. Okay, so with that, I will take your questions. Yes?
So looking at that one, for example, and a couple of the others, is it really, do you think that the technology can do a better job than a person to detect? Right, with the way things are right now, to your point,
Yeah.
It's going to get better. But, and I have the worst vision ever, and I could tell that, the mouth was not quite right. There was something wrong. It was glitching, right? Should there still be a human being looking at the footage, being able to cross-reference, for example, the Obama source, that was a source. Can your systems go out and scour the internet and find the actual source to say, hey, look, this is where this came from, and you've just superimposed something and everything else is identical. Where's that balance between a human interface and the technical interface, and what do you think is the better of the two ultimately when it does get much more difficult for a human?
Yeah, so that's That's a bunch of great questions. Let me break it down a little bit. So first of all, in terms of the human AI divide, I think that teaming really is going to be the best solution. But so some of the examples that I've shown are pretty easy to detect visually, but I think that the technology exists to make a lot better ones that are much harder to visually detect. And if you are, one of the things that you would want to have is a tool that could tell you, number one, can we put a better like number on that fakeness value? Can we actually give you like a confidence interval or something that would really tell you, okay, I automatically reviewed this and there is a 5% chance that it's fake or a 95% chance that it's fake or somewhere in the middle. And if we could do that with some reasonable accuracy, I think that would be a very useful start for someone to go in and say, oh, I really need to do that next level of detailed analysis on it. In addition, what we are trying to do is develop techniques that would allow us to highlight, here are some things that make the tool think that this is fake. And we're essentially starting from a non-AI perspective. Can we look at this from just based on our own observations of what we see from fake videos and real videos? Can we turn that into some kind of numeric information that we can highlight for the user and say, look here, look at this spot, look at this spot, here's some examples from some real videos, and here's some examples from fake videos, and this thing looks like it comes more from over here. Something along those lines that would further facilitate a human analyst really examining it carefully. And then you have this other awesome idea, which is if there's other videos that exist out there, maybe we can detect that this used this specific background from this video and it's manipulating the foreground on the face or the mouth. And that is something that I believe there are some other folks who are looking into in terms of the tools. And I think that what we're developing is sort of complementary to that. But definitely at some point, someone needs to take our stuff and their stuff and start integrating things into a more comprehensive tool. It can't just sit by itself. So, great questions.
So, what about somebody taking public figures, like let's say the president, right? Mm-hmm. Training a model on, there's tons of video of the president, right? Out there, you train a model on that president, use a generation tool to generate him, throw him into a tool like Unity, right? And build the entire scene right in Unity. Then there are no artifacts at all. There's nothing fully generated, fully put all the correct camera artifacts in there. Does that make sense?
Yes, so I'm not sure whether there would be no artifacts or not. There's not probably the same kind of blending type of artifact like I talked about. But would there be other artifacts? And I guess that's unclear to me based on what little I know of Unity and some of the capabilities there. Like I know it can make some things look really quite real, but then will it be 100%? And again, that's the difference between 100% to you and me versus 100% to the algorithm. If you give it the right training data, it might be that the algorithm can actually pick that out. So that would be one piece of the puzzle, but then can we, again, integrate that with further analysis to say, well, okay, well, what did it find? Because I look at it, it looks completely correct to me. So yeah, it's a good question. We have a couple of questions that came up first, so in the black.
I guess just real quick, taking it off in terms of a security standpoint, it's a matter of consuming information to know what's fake and what's not. I just didn't know if there's anything out there as far as like centralized sort of information. This is hot right now. This is not real.
Yeah, so no, as far as I know. I think one of the things we're trying to do is work with journalists to develop like a community, but more centered on journalists of what's going on. And there are communities of creators, people who are mostly for not very good reasons, creating a bunch of deepfakes and like, oh, what about this tool? What about that tool? And you know, is that, you know, oh, I did it with these settings and so on. And we're also trying to develop something that will automatically kind of scan through all of that stuff that's going on and try to pick up on what are the newest trends and tools so that we can feed that into that informational side in the journalists.
So I think I was kind of thinking along the same lines as you were. So how do we educate, how we say, the common people, right? We all have to be, so we know this stuff is happening. We know it's bad stuff. We can't believe everything we see. We have to be critical thinkers. But how do we educate people in our companies or our family and our friends to do the same?
Yeah, I wish I had the answers to that one. I mean, I think that actually, that the people who are in charge of security education now, like phishing and job scams and that type of stuff, who are thinking about those things now, should also start thinking about exactly that question. And I hope that talks like mine do it help, you know, seed those thoughts. Here?
I was just gonna, you know, we've always kind of lived by this motto, you gotta see it to believe it. But now we can't believe it, right?
Yes, for sure.
That there's always gonna have to be this air of skepticism, and you know, you have to verify kind of everything, right? And again, I was talking with my legal department about this, and you know, they're already hearing about cases where judges like aren't allowing evidence anymore, you know, unless they can like definitively verify it's authenticity. No,
Yeah. So there is one technology that I think has a lot of potential to help in this that's just starting to roll out, which is cameras will start to have chips in them that will essentially certify, sign anything that comes out of them. And so that has a lot of potential. Of course, the problem is that that's coming out now, and my phone isn't created, well, with this technology that's not going to be in phones until like next year, right? So this is going to eventually lead to not every video being fully vetted, but a lot of videos having that vetting available. It might not be what you know, the one that goes around online might not be vetted, but then if a journalist checks in with the source, and the source can say, not only do I have the video, I have the certification, and here's the original video, untampered, with the certification that goes with it, and you can check that it's the untampered thing, right? So that would help a lot. And you know, I think that's more like what the long-term solution looks like. It's that sort of intermediate space between now and like how many years is it going to be before you can say, you took this video without providing that evidence, so I'm not going to let this on any platforms. But then at the same time, people edit videos all the time, just, you know, even non-deepfake things, not to make them fake, but just to make them more entertaining and so on. So what platforms are really going to say, no, you can't put anything on here that isn't certified? You know, so there's some tricky business to still work out from that. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Kind of thinking, going back to the tools that are used to produce it,
So, yes and no. In terms of the ones that are doing fully generative, right now mostly images, are also either looking into or already have implemented some kind of watermark that goes along with the image that's supposed to be difficult to take out, but if you know the key, you know how to look for it, and then you can say, oh yes, it came from this. That said, for any tool that's out there, someone can create an equivalent tool that doesn't have the watermarking, and then, you know.
I was thinking more in terms of the ones generating deepfakes, and if there was a way to, identify where there's an algorithm where the sequence of pixels suddenly has the same, characteristics, so that you could identify a technique used to create the fake.
Sure, and I think that the point is that given that some people may make, so some companies will ethically try to do things like that to put that, when they put out a tool, they're going to make it so that it's very easy for anybody with the right whatever to automatically go, yes, this is a deep fake. And at the same time, there's going to be people who are able to take that same, because the technology, it's sitting in research papers, and a lot of it is open source code, and you just take some of the open source code and you update it with the latest variant from the algorithm, and then they release it in these underground forums so that everyone else has access to it. So you can't, that's to me, it limits the sort of script kiddies of the world from being able to do it, but it doesn't, like as soon as someone has a little more time and capability, then they can bypass it in that sense. Well, on that exciting note, okay, well, thank you very much.